All right, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. I think most of our participants are here. So welcome once again to our summer webinar series. Today's webinar is going to be on housing. We're calling it Housing 101. Welcome to the UCSD neighborhood. And it's going to be presented jointly by ERC Residence Life, iHouse, and Student Affairs. So a brief introduction of our team. So the ERC Student Affairs team includes Will Songer, who is our Senior New Student Program Specialist. He's unable to be here today, but he is the one who runs our orientation program. So when you join in the fall, you'll be meeting him at orientation. My name is City. I am the Student Affairs Program Assistant. So I assist a little bit in everything, but especially this time of year in orientation. And we have Srishti Acharya, who is a senior orientation leader and ERC resident. And we have our ERC residence life staff, who I will let them introduce themselves.
Thanks, City. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ray Guerrero, and I use he, him, and his pronouns. And I'm the Director of Residence Life and the Associate Dean of Student Affairs. And I have the pleasure of administering the Residence Life program, which is for everybody who is choosing to live on campus this year. And we have one of our amazing student leaders. Alan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Hi, everyone. I'm Alan. I am one of the resident advisors here at Eleanor Roosevelt College. And I'm excited to be talking about housing with you all today. Sincere is our other amazing lead resident advisor here at ERC, but he cannot join us, unfortunately, for this session. And I'll have Julian introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julian Zepeda. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the program coordinator at International House, which is a learning living community that is housed in Eleanor Roosevelt College.
All right, so a brief overview of today's agenda. We will first be doing a housing overview. So Ray will go over important dates, deadlines, and logistics. Then we'll have a chance to do a Q&A with our residence life staff about any questions you may have about housing, the student life experience as a resident. After that, we'll be doing making the most of living on campus and talking a little bit about the student experience. And lastly, we will have a Q&A where you can ask a resident advisor, also called an RA, any questions you have about the dorms on campus, living in a building, or living in a LLC, which is a living and learning community on our campus. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Ray for our next slide to go over the housing overview.
Thanks, City. This information is jam-packed on this slide, so hopefully you can read it okay. Please feel free to screenshot this because there is an important website address on there as well. But first of all, congratulations to all of you. If you're here, it means that you will be an ERC student this fall here at UC San Diego. So let me be one of many to welcome you to the ERC family. Those of you who are here and are interested in housing should already know that the housing deadline has passed already to apply for housing. So the housing application itself had a deadline of the first week of June. So June 7th was the deadline for that. So hopefully everybody in this webinar has met that first deadline. If you meet this plus all the other deadlines that are on this slide, that will mean you are guaranteed 2 years of housing here at UC San Diego. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means during this time, and then hopefully answer any questions you have about housing and what that's like here. So the next important date is this week, actually. So beginning the 17th, Housing sent out an email to all students who applied for housing by the June 7th deadline. And that email contains all the information you need to submit your housing contract. So the housing contract is the next step to meeting your housing guarantee. And all that information was emailed this week. So hopefully you will have received that. It would have come to your official UC San Diego email address. So if you haven't activated that yet, please do so. It may be sitting in there waiting for you if you haven't opened it yet. Once you open up that information, there's all kinds of information about the contract that you'll need to fill out, just like you would if you were applying to live in an apartment or elsewhere after you move out from home. Every place that you enter into a rental agreement with, there is a contract that you'll fill out. This is no different than that, except it is specific to UC San Diego's on-campus housing. So in addition to contact information, emergency information, financial information, they're also going to want specifics that will help us give you the best living arrangement as possible. And those things would be your preference for where you want to live here at ERC or in a living learning community, or what type of room you want to live in, a single room, a double room, or a triple room. If you have a preference for roommates and would like to request them, all of those things are also part of the housing contract for UC San Diego. And so it's a bit of information that you'll have to fill out. So take your time. Make sure that you're the one who's filling that out and not your parents or anybody else, because a lot of the information that's on there will help us, again, make arrangements for the best living arrangement for you. And so if you put down, truthfully, when you answer those questions about your living habits and things like that, that will give us the best information to successfully assign you. Whereas if you let mom and dad fill it out, they may not know that you hate country music, and they put down that you love that, or that they put down you're an early riser when that's not really true. So definitely one of the things you want to do is read and fill this out by yourself and submit that information. You have until July 1st to turn in that contract. So along with the contract information, there's also a $450 prepayment that's due as well with the contract. So by July 1st, have completed that contract information, and then submitting the $450 prepayment will be the next step in keeping your housing guarantee for 2 years. Now, for those of you who have applied for financial aid, the $450 prepayment is not covered immediately by financial aid. So you would need to come up with that money on your own. If you have any difficulty with that, please contact housing immediately before the July 1st deadline so you can let them know and make other arrangements. If you are applying for financial aid, your award package that you'll receive later should reflect that $450 prepayment. So it's not like you won't be compensated for that. You would just need to come up with that check, money order, or traveler's check by the July 1st deadline. So that's the first step, is completing the contract information itself. Now, once you've submitted the contract information, there are other things that you can go back in and add to or apply for. And one of those is the type of living community that you want to be assigned to. There are specialized living communities, such as the living learning communities, as well as gender inclusive housing. Julian will follow up after I finish this overview to talk a little bit more about the living learning communities here at UC San Diego, 2 of which are right in the ERC neighborhood. But I want to talk a little bit about gender inclusive housing. So the housing we offer on campus for UC San Diego is gendered, meaning they're separated by male identified and female identified housing spaces. And so if you apply to live in the dorms, for example, you would live in a suite of all male if you identify as a male, and vice versa for females identified students. Same with apartments as well. So the gender inclusive option provides you an opportunity to live in a space that is inclusive of all gender and gender identities. So if that is what you want to choose from, then you want to look into applying for gender inclusive housing. The default is gendered housing, so just keep that in mind. So the contract has to be, again, submitted by July 1st, but then you'll be able to go into the housing portal at that point and indicate, yes, I would like gender inclusive housing, or yes, I would like a living learning community, or I'd like to apply to a living learning community. So there's a website that's on this slide that will give you more information about both of those. So you can refer to that for a resource if you need to after this webinar is over, or if you didn't get to ask a question about it while we're here this morning. Also due on July 8th is the deadline for letting us know if you need any other kind of housing accommodations. Now that would be a specialized accommodation because of certain living requirements that you have. So for example, if you have very severe allergies and need a space that's not near a lot of trees or things like that, you can't have a lot of carpeting and things along those lines. That would be a special housing accommodation based on a health issue. Those also we would need to know about beforehand. So again, by July 8th, you would go into the housing portal and adjust your contract to reflect these special needs. Now, any kind of living arrangement needs that you have need to be vetted by our Office for Students with Disabilities. So whether it's an allergy, whether it's the need to live in an apartment because you have dietary restrictions and you need your own kitchen, those kind of things, you would need to present documentation to the Office for Students with Disabilities, who will then create that accommodation and send it to housing, in which case we would try and fulfill that as best as possible. So again, submitting any of those needs to housing via the housing portal after you've submitted your contract by July 8th is very important if you want those kind of needs met. Then later on in July, on the 22nd, there's another deadline, and that is to request any particular roommates that you would like to live with. So if you have somebody that you know has been admitted to UC San Diego, and in particular admitted to Eleanor Roosevelt College, and it is a mutual request where you both would like to live together, you could submit those requests by the 22nd. In addition to that, you can also submit your room type preference. So that would be the type of room you live in. I'll go over the layouts of the housing in just a minute, but in general, you have single bedroom choices, mini double and double bedroom choices, and then triple bedroom choices. All of those are different configurations that also have a price point difference. And so if paying less for housing is important to you, or if privacy is important to you, those are the types of things that will determine what type of room you would want to preference in your contract. So by the 22nd, we would like to know what that preference is. We do have a limited number of those spaces, limited number of singles, doubles, and triples. So we can't guarantee that we can accommodate everybody's preference choices, but we do try our best to do that. Then once you submit all of those different aspects of the contract, and you're letting us know what your needs and your preferences are, then by late August, housing will then make room assignments based on all of that information. And then that plus move-in information will be available in the housing portal. They'll send you, again, an email in your UCSD email address, and that will kind of indicate to you that you can go in and check that information. What that'll list is your room assignment, where you actually place. It'll give you all of your roommate and suite mate information, so you can contact those folks before move-in. So you can make arrangements to make sure that, you know, the three of you or the four of you don't all bring microwaves, you know, on move-in day. So you can do a lot of planning, getting to know them before you actually physically meet up here in September. And then later in the year, once after the school year has started on October 2nd, the last important deadline is the option to change your dining plan. So you'll have a couple of weeks after you've moved in to decide, hey, this dining plan that I picked isn't enough. I would like more food. You'll have that option to change that dining plan by October 2nd. So those are just some important highlighted dates that you want to keep in mind. Again, please screenshot this, especially for that that website that's on there, so you'll be able to refer to that if you've forgotten anything I've said after today. You'll see down at the bottom, there's an asterisk because we also know that there are folks that may be in a situation where they're still on the admissions wait list and may not have been accepted by UCSD at this point. If that it applies to you, just note that these important dates may change in your situation. However, for anybody who knows they have been admitted and have submitted their acceptance of your offer, these are the hard and fast deadlines for you. And again, missing these can mean you would forfeit your housing guarantee. This would only change in the case of somebody who is pulled off of the admissions wait list. Some of these deadlines may be adjusted in your situation. So hopefully that's not too much information. Again, go back to that website that's on this page for more reference. But again, keep those deadlines in mind. And then now, if we can go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about what housing looks like for those of you here in your first year. As I mentioned, in the ERC neighborhood, we do have two types of housing that students can live in. One of those is our residence halls. The residence halls are also known as dorms, are your very traditional housing format that the majority of our first year students live in. If your parents or other family members have lived on campus when they were in college, they can tell you all about what the dorm situation is like. The residence halls are set up on the west side of our campus, and they are made up of living suites, which are a whole segment of each floor of the building that is comprised of double, triple, and some single bedrooms. Those house about 15 or 16 people total that live in that suite in those particular bedrooms, surrounding a very large suite lounge, which is sort of like your living room for your space with your suite mates. And then you all share a bathroom for those 15 or 16 people. In addition to your suite, there is a large community kitchen and study area down on the bottom floor of each building that the entire building shares. And so you have that living experience where you get to know your suite mates very quickly. And then you can also gather down in the community lounge if you don't want to go to the dining hall together for making meals or just for snacks at night and things like that for study sessions. The other option for housing are apartments, and apartments are just like apartments that you've probably seen in your hometown or you may be living in currently, which would be a self-contained living space that is within a building of several apartments. Each apartment houses anywhere from 4 to 6 people here at ERC in mini, double, and single bedrooms. Each apartment has a full kitchen specifically for those 4 to 6 people that live in that apartment, and the bathroom is for those 4 to 6 persons themselves. So the apartments provide a lot more privacy for folks who may be more introverted or would like to know people more one-on-one in a smaller situation than they would in a suite where you're immediately living with 15 or 16 people. In addition to that, the apartments are also available at 7th College, where we have our additional community of ERC students. Those are also apartments similar to the ones here at ERC, split up again in double, single, and in this case at 7th, they do have triple rooms in those apartments as well. So those are the two options that students can live in during their first year. During their second year of your guarantee, the majority of students live in apartments or again in a living learning community like International House, for example, for their second year. Regardless if you're living in the residence halls or the apartments, whether you're living at ERC or 7th College, dining is included in your housing contract. And at ERC, the closest dining facilities would be Ventanas, which is our large dining hall. You can also use your dining plan at the market, located a block away from our neighborhood. In addition, that dining plan is good for any other areas on campus that have UCSD housing. And so if you have classes that are over in Revelle, for example, during the day, you don't have to trek all the way back to ERC to eat lunch. You can eat in the dining facilities at Revelle and use that same dining plan. In addition to that, you'll have a Triton cash account, which is our campus debit card that's attached to your dining plan. And that is good for a lot of different areas like the bookstore, the laundry rooms, but it also can be used in our eating areas. And there are specific dining facilities, such as the ones in the Price Center, and then close by to our campus, such as Shake Smart and Ridgewalk Social, that you can use the Triton Cash account to pay for dining there. In addition to to the dining plan, there are other amenities, laundry facilities, study and meeting rooms. There is a central mail room where you'll be receiving packages, and also Amazon lockers that you can send Amazon orders directly to where you live. Game room facilities, student activity center, and then the REMAC recreation complex is right next door to our neighborhood, so that's very convenient for our students as well. Again, in tiny print down at the bottom is another website. If you want to go ahead and screenshot that, that describes all of the amenities that I've just quickly gone over. And it also includes a virtual tour of our facilities, both at ERC and at 7th. So you can take a look and see what those look like via a YouTube video. So that's basically the lay of the land in regards to housing and how to apply and be guaranteed for it. And so I'm now going to pass it over to my colleague Julian to talk a little bit more about the living learning communities.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. So I know what you're probably wondering. What are living learning communities? Great start. Or LLCs. So UC San Diego is committed to creating more spaces where our diverse population of undergraduate students can connect with each other, with the university, and others within the community. So LLCs are characterized by housing within the same residence location, shared co-curricular experiences, access to resource, and engaging in activities that reinforce common affinities such as culture and identity. So on the next slide, I have a list of living learning communities that are scattered across UC San Diego. So in Muir College, we have the LGBTQIA plus living learning community. This is for students who identify on the spectrum of LGBTQIA plus to come together and either have a space to be in community with others on the spectrum or discover their own identities as they're away from home and have the opportunities to discover themselves. At 6th College, we have the African Black Diaspora Living Learning Community. This is for Black students to come together in community and have a space that is validated on their experiences. In 6th College, we also have the Multicultural Living and Learning Community, which is a space that invites students who have affinity for multiculturalism and social justice. This learning living community also works with an organization called Spaces on campus, which does serve underserved and underrepresented students. Now at ERC, we have the Rasa Living Learning Community and International House, which I'm going to go in detail about. So the Rasa Living Learning Community. The Rasa LLC provides a space within the International House complex and one of the residence halls in ERC for new and continuing UCS students from all 6 colleges to live and contribute to a vibrant living learning community. Our Rasadens are committed to developing an understanding of greater appreciation for the Chicanx and Latinx experience in San Diego and the United States and the histories and cultures of Latin America. Our programmatic objectives of community building, mentorship, and education help develop peer-to-peer relationships with International House and opportunities with Rasa Resource Central and the campus student organizations, creating formal and informal collaborations throughout the year. If you do identify as Chicanx or Latinx, I do really encourage you to look into the Rasa Learning Living Community. There are a lot of opportunities on and off campus for you to be in community with other students of the same identity. One of their signature events is taking the trolley to Chicano Park, which is located in Barrio Logan, which there's a lot of small businesses and great food, probably like the best tacos you ever have. And International House. So the campus's first and largest living community is comprised of students from all colleges and the UC Education Abroad program, representing over 30 countries annually with a goal of 50% international students and 50% domestic residents. As a part of International House's worldwide consortium, iHealth shares their mission of promoting global awareness and intercultural understanding. Residents are expected to actively contribute in community programs, including the Global Forum, which is a lecture series that covers international topics while also highlighting cultural celebrations such as Diwali and Lunar New Year. Language conversation tables, which is a space for students to come together to either improve or learn a new language or even teach a language that they're proficient in. And Sunday Supper, which is our formal dinner that happens quarterly to showcase students' talents while also inviting you all to come together and celebrate community. And International Women's Week, which is one of the international celebrations that we have just promoting different identities on campus. So how do you apply to an LLC? Students have until July 8th, 2024 to apply to an LLC. Note, your signed housing contract must also be received by the July 1st deadline. Applying to an LLC is a competitive application process, so I do have some tips for you all when you are applying. Think about why you would want to live in an LLC compared to any other housing opportunity on campus. Mostly what we see is that successful applications are based on the quality and the intent of the applicant's responses. So think about why you want to be in the LLC, what opportunities would it foster for you there. In iHouse, think about like the experiences you'll have with other international students and this intercultural understanding that you will gain. And if you are not accepted into an LLC, you can be assigned a general space in the ERC neighborhood. Cool, so now we're going into Q&A.
All right, so there have been a few questions from the attendees, and I'm going to be directing them to our staff to answer them. The first question is, are room preferences on a first come, first served basis? I can hand that off to Ray to answer.
Sure, thanks, City. So they are not on a first come, first served basis. So the deadlines that I mentioned to you, that July 1st deadline is a deadline for all contracts to be received. And then as you noticed in the deadlines, there are later deadlines for submitting your room preferences, roommate requests, and things like that. So all of that information is taken to account. So the quicker you send it in doesn't necessarily mean that your preference will be met. We basically take all that information and then look to see what we have available in our inventory to assign people. And so you need to think about sort of being strategic about how you place your preferences. So the reality is of the housing options that we offer, residence halls or apartments, there are more apartment spaces available to first-year students than residence hall spaces. So the dorms are more competitive in that sense because a vast majority of our first years want to live in a dorm situation. Now, when you're looking at room types, whether it's in the dorms or in the dorms itself, singles are the smallest number available to first-year students. Then come double rooms. That's the next largest group, but the vast majority of our dorm spaces are triples. And so if you want to live in that larger community living situation in the dorms, the chances are, regardless of your preference, you may be placed in a triple. That's a reality of that. So again, if your preference is you really want to live in a single room, then the dorms may not be the preference you choose. The apartments, by far, have more single rooms than any other spaces. In ERC, the majority of our apartment spaces are single rooms, and then the next largest group are mini doubles. And so we only offer single bedrooms and mini doubles in the ERC apartments. If you have a preference for living in an apartment because you want to cook yourself, but you want to live with other people, and you can feel like you can best afford only a triple, then you may need to look at our community in 7th College, which does offer triple rooms. And so again, you have to kind of think about what your preferences are in that regard. So think about things like cost, because the most expensive option is a single bedroom. So just to let you know, whether it's in the residence halls or the apartments, cost is based on the bedrooms choices. So the most expensive choice is single bedrooms. Next expensive is double rooms, then mini doubles, and then triple rooms. So the least expensive option is a triple room. So that whether that's in the dorms or at 7th College apartments, then and that's where you would, knowing you want to save money, that may be your best preference. So take a look at all of the options that are available and then make an educated choice. And that's where you may want to loop in your folks, your parents, or your family members to talk about what is realistic for you and how you think you can best succeed here.
Thank you, Ray. I think you managed to answer the next two questions as well, which were, are double rooms available only in apartments or also in res halls? And how difficult are they to get compared to triples? So you answered that a little bit, but in case there's anything else to add.
I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat websites to the actual rates and both for dining plans and the room costs. So it'll give you an idea of how much you'd be paying for all of those options that I talked about, whether you're in a single, double, or triple in the dorms, or a single or mini double, or a single, double, or triple in the apartments at 7th College or ERC. So I'll put those both of those websites in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. So the next question is for Julian, and that is, can incoming freshmen apply to iHouse? The option does not show up in the housing portal.
Yes, so going back to this slide, this is, I believe, after your housing contract is accepted, then you have until July 8th to apply to an LLC. Ray, do you want to go more into the application process?
Yes. So again, you have until the 8th to apply for an LLC. And again, the LLCs can be anything, could be any of the living learning communities that are available campus-wide. So you don't only have to apply to the ones that are located in ERC. However, you can only choose one LLC to apply for. And so by the 8th, you need to make a decision. Well, I think I'm going to try for LGBT housing over at which is located over at Muir College, or I really, really like the concept of an international house and I want to stay in ERC. So I'm going to apply for iHouse. So you have until the 8th to do that. We go through, like Julian had outlined, and look at those applications, and we make a decision based on the quality of the applications, who would fit best in those communities. While we're doing that for iHouse, my colleagues over at Muir are doing the same for people who apply to the LGBT LLC, et cetera. And so once those decisions are made, and if you are accepted, then you would go through the rest of the housing process knowing that your assignment will be in that living learning community. If you're not accepted in a living learning community, you will be defaulted back to your home community. So if you applied for iHouse or the LGBT living learning community or the multicultural living learning community at 6th College and you weren't accepted, then you'll be deferred back to home, to the home housing at ERC or 7th College. And again, we would base that assignment on your other preferences in the contract package. Now, with the second year of guarantee housing, you are more than welcome to reapply if you weren't accepted this year, or if you were accepted and like the experience and want to apply again. Again, it's a separate application process for the second year of housing as well.
Thank you, Ray. So our next question is, if for some reason you and your roommate don't really fit well, is there an application to switch roommates?
So I know that Alan has stories being an RA in regards to roommate conflicts. However, we pride ourselves on doing the best we can to accommodate everybody's living preferences. And we find that the most successful roommate assignments are when somebody has been very honest about what they're looking for in a roommate, and then also being very honest about their living habits themselves. So think about how you present yourself in that contract. Be realistic. If you, like I mentioned earlier, if you don't like country music, don't put country music down. If you are not an early riser, don't put that down in your contract information. And again, do all of these things yourself. Don't defer to mom and dad to make those decisions for you. We want you to present yourself in as real a way as possible, and be honest as possible about that. We find that even when people request roommates of each other, that may not be the best situation either. If you're only requesting each other because you happen to, be coming from the same hometown or whatever, and you think it'll be easy to commute back and forth together, that doesn't necessarily make you the best roommates. And so you need to think about, if you're choosing somebody that you want to request, can you live with that person? You may be friends with that person, but can you live with that person? Really kind of think about things like, how often do they do laundry? Do they even do laundry? Things like that. So always think about, how your living habits may affect others, and then more importantly, what's important to you for somebody living with you, and just being honest in that respect. Every so often we will get a situation where the roommates just don't get along with each other. Again, once everybody moves in, even if you're complete strangers, we try our best to have everybody start off the year correctly, on the right foot, with talking about each other's expectations. And Alan will talk about that in a little bit. One of the responsibilities for our RAs is to help facilitate those conversations. So folks who aren't used to asking questions like, I prefer to study without music, or I prefer to study without having guests over. And then your roommate loves having guests over to have study sessions, then there may be conflict with that. So how do you broach the subject about how to compromise that kind of situation? And that's what the RAs are here to help navigate. And they'll continue to do that and try and foster these conversations throughout the year, because you may not be the best friends with your roommates, but sometimes the most successful roommate situations are ones where you aren't the best of friends, but you do know how to work together, you know how to communicate with each other. And so that's the important part, is just being willing to communicate, being willing to compromise, and to be willing to understand where the other person is coming from. Again, with all good intentions, sometimes that doesn't work out either. We do allow for folks to request a room change. However, it's not automatic. So we do have a freeze on all housing assignments until the third week of each quarter. And housing just implements that because it takes that much time for them to get assignments down, and they can't do any kind of movement until everybody's moved in and settled in. So you already have almost a month together where you have to live together. And so it's during that time that the RAs really work on trying to build those communication skills with you and your roommates and your suite mates, so you can learn to communicate, and then hopefully work things out to the point where you can live together. Again, maybe not be the best of friends together, but you can have your time with your friends elsewhere, and then make things work where you're living to the best of your abilities. But after the third week, if it still doesn't work out, we'll try and make those changes. But again, it's very difficult because we don't really have a lot of wiggle room in regards to where everybody's placed. We fill every bed once people come in. And so you are assigned where you're assigned. And in a lot of ways, you have to really work at making it successful. It won't be automatic if you don't necessarily know each other, and the vast majority of you won't. And so that's why we have the RAs here to help you through that, and then also really trust that you will put your best foot forward and try and make things work out. Sorry for the super long answer, but Alan will have more insight about that either now, Alan, if you want to, or maybe later.
Sorry. Our next question is, how many students live in the ERC LLCs every year?
So we accommodate the vast majority of ERC students in International House in Rasa, because those are the ones that are right here in our neighborhood. And we generally, historically, have gotten the most applications from ERC students for both of those living learning communities. We have, I would say, maybe 10% of our students live in other LLCs elsewhere, especially for first-year students. They really want to experience living in ERC first before maybe going on to the second year at another LLC, knowing it's at another college. So the vast majority of our ERC students that apply for LLCs, it's usually right here in our neighborhood in iHouse or in Rasa.
Awesome, thank you. And then the next question is, what is the difference between Triton cash and dining dollars?
So that I touch on it a little bit, but the Triton Cash is strictly dining. It's strictly used for, I'm sorry, the dining plan is strictly dining. So it is attached to your contract. So it's automatic. You don't have a choice. You do have one. You can choose the minimum dining plan if you're somebody who likes to cook for themselves and may not eat in the dining facilities a lot on your own. Or you can go for the maximum plan if you eat a lot. If you're an athlete, for example, or and it's much more convenient for you to go to the dining hall to get your meals as opposed to preparing it yourself. However, a lot of people have the larger dining plan because they know they can go to the markets and purchase stuff that they can cook at home as well. So it's just a matter of convenience, because anything outside of that, you would have to venture off campus or elsewhere to get your food. So the dining plan is designed for utmost convenience because everything is right here at your fingertips. You want to try and use that as much as possible because, again, it's part of your contract. You basically use it or lose it by the following fall. The Triton Cash is so the dining plan is only lasts through the quarter after 1 year. So your whole housing contract, there's a dining plan tied to it that's supposed to be used during that contract period. However, any leftover you're allowed to use till the following quarter of the next year, and then it's gone. Triton Cash is the campus debit card program, and that's a program where you provide money into that plan, similar to a debit card. However, there's no interest gained or anything like that. And it's just a safe place to keep your money if you know you're going to spend that money on campus or in campus-related places. And so what that means is you can use it as a debit card. It's attached to your ID card, just like your dining plan is. And in addition to being able to use it at any of the dining facilities that you would use your dining plan for, you can also use it for things like the laundry room, to pay for your laundry instead of hoarding quarters. You can only use your Triton Cash to pay for laundry. You can go to use it at the bookstore in lieu of having to use your own credit card or your own money. That money is in that Triton Cash to use at the bookstore if you wish. And then there are a lot of off-campus options that are primarily dining facilities off campus that you can also have also partnered with the university, so you can use your Triton Cash. It's my understanding that there are several restaurants just off campus in addition to elsewhere. Alan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about where you can use that and then what you found as far as like the differences between the two.
Yeah, for the dining plan, again, like we said, like all of that is used for the HCH or the housing dining facilities, and you can use them you can go to any dining hall for that dining. So you don't have you're not locked into the ERC dining hall. You can go to other colleges like Ravel's, Mears, and use your dining dollars there. For Triton Cash, yeah, there is a lot of really cool food places you can eat around campus. Like the Price Center has a lot of restaurants. My favorite is Fan Fan at Six College. That is my favorite. And that's where you use your Triton Cash. You also can use your Triton Cash for laundry and other stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you both. So for the sake of time, we're gonna need to move on to the next section, and we'll try and get to as many of your questions as we can at the end as well. I'm gonna hand it off to Alan for our student experience portion of the webinar.
Perfect. Thanks, City. Hi, everyone. To reintroduce myself again, my name is Alan, and I am a resident advisor here at ERC. For the 2024 to 2025 year, I'm also one of your lead RAs, actually. So I'll be helping out with all the Res Life stuff. In addition to that, something I'm really proud of, I'm also an iHouse RA. So I also do programming with Julian, and I'm really involved in that aspect as well. So if you have any questions about iHouse, I'd love to answer those as well. All right, so what we'll touch into is who your RA is and what we have to offer. So here are a bunch of beautiful faces, Julian also being in here, and who we are as your RAs. Okay, so who's your RA? So when we say RA, we mean resident advisor, or the person who lives in your building and basically helps you make your second home fun, enjoyable, and safe. Each building in ERC has around 2 to 3 RAs, so for a total of a team of 27 RAs at ERC and then 3 lead RAs. And your RAs are resources, so we help connect you to other campus resources, such as maybe you're writing an MMW paper and you need help getting connected to the writing hub, we will help you do that. We also help you with any living and housing issues, or if you just want to rant about midterms or rant about classes, we can also offer that listening ear for you. So what do we do as RAs? So first, we help plan fun events all year round. There's more info about our programming and the different events we host throughout the year. We also assist you with any living issues such as roommate disputes, conflict management, and lockouts. So we do that through the building meetings at the beginning of the year where we get together and we introduce ourselves as RAs and talk about the policies we have in our building. We also facilitate the living space agreements. So with your apartment or your suite, you get together with the RA and you discuss your living habits, your living expectations. That way it's out in the air for everyone and people know what to expect when you're living together. And then finally, there's also an RA or an office assistant in the residence life office from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. throughout the academic year. And that's there for you if you need any assistance regarding housing, such as maintenance issues or lockouts. So a question we get really often is, how do I connect with our RA? So we are these upperclassmen who might seem really intimidating, but we are really there to help you live in ERC. So at the beginning of the year, we had the building meeting, like I said, and the living space agreements. And those are great spaces to connect with your RA. You can approach us, talk to us, introduce yourselves to us, and we'd love to get to know you in that aspect. Roommate agreements also happen if you're living in a double, mini double, or triple room, and those are important to discuss living habits in your room specifically. Usually the RA is not there for that, but if you do need an RA to help facilitate those conversations, we'd be more than happy to help you with that. Throughout the year, we also have we have many different kinds of events. So we have our formal or big events, and those are the ones with like a bunch of people, and they're there to increase community. But we also have small informal events within our building. So those are there. Usually we do like karaoke events, game nights, movie nights, and those are also there to meet other people in the building to have fun with as well. All the RAs also have a big sign in our front window, so feel free to contact us through email, the building Instagram that we will send out to you all when we introduce ourselves, or if we are home, feel free to knock on our doors. And finally, we're also students, so we're walking back and forth from classes. If you do see us, feel free to give us a wave or say hi to us. We love seeing you all throughout the day. All right, so I touched on programming as well, or the events that we have at ERC, and it is a great way to involve. It's a great way to get involved with your RA, your peers, and becoming a part of the ERC community. So our mission statement at ERC is to develop citizens of the world through scholarship, leadership, and service. So basically, every quarter, the RAs we plan events that like match these pillars or like fulfill these pillars. And alongside these formal programs, like I said, we have the informal ones that are hosted very regularly, once a week, and they're there just to get to see us, see other people in the building, and have some fun. All right, so by pillars, what do we mean by the event pillars? And these are the scholarship, leadership, service events that we have for you all. So the first one we have is the scholarship events, and what they're meant to do is to support and foster academic success through campus resources such as the academic advising and the writing hub. So some different events we've had this year were MMW study sessions. We have a lot of de-stress events like de-stress finals where we give out fidget toys, or we have lots of snacks for you all to eat. And also we do a study abroad Q&A, which was really cool. So we got the study abroad office to come in, and for people that are interested in study abroad, that was an opportunity for people to ask questions to them as well. And then for our leadership events, so leadership events engage residents to leadership opportunities through ERC student organizations such as CIRC, or the Student Council at ERC, and PERC, so planning events at ERC. And they function to foster a culture of care through education around social identities and cultural differences. So some events we've done were the Nightmare on iWalk, which is every Halloween, we have all the houses lined up on iWalk. And basically you go to each of the houses like a trick-or-treating thing, and you get candy from everyone. And at the end, if you go to all the houses, you get a small prize. Another thing we did was the ERC Lunar Light celebration. So for Lunar New Year this year, we had a celebration where we had people make spring rolls, we had people make lanterns, and we had little snack bags people could take back with them to try different snacks. And then for our service events, so service programs help connect service learning to students' passions and career objectives. And these are usually done with partnership with other college organizations such as Ellie's Garden, HTH Sustainability, and Econauts. So a fun one we did this year was the Sustainable Spring event, and that was really cool because we got a bunch of succulents and pots, so people were able to paint a pot and plant those succulents. We also had tree planting. We had a clothes drive, so people could donate their clothes and exchange with other people in the neighborhood. And we also had an acai bowl station, so we had people eat acai bowls, which was really good as well. All right, so that's the stuff we have going on at ERC and the different programs we have. But we have a bunch of stuff that you can get involved in on campus as well. So campus life, we have different campus study spots. So maybe you want to try studying in a different college or study at Price Center, that's available for you there. UCSD Rec and Outback Adventures has lots of fun stuff you can try out as well. Intramural sports, club sports, all that's available too. Price Center and Old Student Centers has a bunch of different restaurants you can try. And again, those are used for your, you can use your Triton Cash to eat at those places. And finally, if you're also a nature person, you love hiking, Glider Port is right by ERC. It's really nice. And you can check that out there as well. Other kinds of student involvement we have going on, we have ERC student organization specifically. So at the beginning of the year, something we do is called the Taste of ERC, which is really fun. And it's a bunch of different ERC orgs that get together, and you can check out what you want to might get involved in at ERC. We also have campus-wide student orgs, different community centers, Greek life, student employment, and then college leadership. So maybe through student council, through orientation. I know Shrishti has lots of insight into that, and then residence life as well. And then there's also a campus involvement webinar on August 16th. So if you're interested in anything I just said, feel free to check that out as well. All right, so getting around campus. So campus is really big. So we have lots of different ways for you to navigate campus and get to the places you need to be. So we have the campus shuttle. So we have the two loops. We have the inside loop and the outside loop. And there's a bunch of different stations throughout campus. And there's a live shuttle tracker there for you if you need to track when the next shuttle comes in, or when or where your nearest station is at. So I know the campus shuttle is really nice because sometimes you might wake up a little late for class. I know that's happened to me more than plenty of times, and having the campus shuttle was really convenient to get to, like Ravel, which is like across the campus. We also have a bunch of spin scooters and spin bikes around campus you can use. You can also bring your own bike or scooter as well, or you can walk as well. And currently, something to note, there is construction happening on campus. There's a bunch of different projects that are happening. So there are alternate paths that you would have to take to get to the place you need to be. So what I recommend before your first day of classes is to just check out where your classes are and see where they are. So that way, you know, first day of classes, you're not like hunting and running around everywhere because everyone else is doing that as well. All right, so let's say you're sick of campus, you want to explore San Diego, and you want to see different things. We have a bunch of different ways for you to check out the city of San Diego. So we have a bunch of different bus routes, and they're located near Gilman Parking Structure, which is south of our campus. And we have a bunch of different lines that can take you to different parts of San Diego. So let's say the 201, 202 takes you to UTC, the 30 takes you to Old Town or downtown San Diego, and the 101 takes you up to the north coastal cities. We also have a central campus trolley stop. So that's the blue line that you can take. So basically that's the blue line takes you from UTC, which is the campus mall, or the San Diego, the University Mall, down to San Ysidro, which is down to the Mexican border. And you can also get to downtown San Diego with the blue line. The blue line is free for UCSD students to use. So if you download the Pronto app and you get the UPass on it, you can scan your QR code every time you get on to the blue line without a fee. You also have zip cars and grocery shuttles there if you need those as well. And those were all of the slides I had to present about student experience, student life here at ERC. So feel free to ask any questions you have about what we do, how to get involved, stuff like that as well. Or just how to be a student here at UCSD.
Thank you so much, Alan. So now we have some time to answer questions about the student experience, and we have both Alan and Srushti here to answer any of your questions. One of the first questions I see I can answer, so I'll go ahead and take that, which is, when will you send out the recording of this webinar? So after the webinar has been completed and we have a chance to upload the recording, it will go up on our new student resources page on the Roosevelt College website. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be up a few days within 1 to 2 weeks of the webinar. So some more of the questions that I see. Let's see. There's some that we've already answered, but if I run out of dining dollars, can I buy more? Which I believe the answer to that is yes, but Ray, you can elaborate more if you'd like.
Yes, for the dining plan itself, the dining dollars, it is you can add to it throughout the year. However, towards the end of the year, if you find you are running low on dining dollars, you may want to instead add to your Triton cash as opposed to your dining plan, because again, the dining plan is finite. It ends after the quarter after the year of the contract that you have. And so if you add to that and then you end up not using it, you may lose that. Whereas the Triton cash stays in your account your entire time at UCSD. And so I would say towards the end of the year, you may want to consider using Triton cash and then adding to that as opposed to adding to your dining plan.
Great, thank you. Do freshmen get rooms in apartments or do most of them live in residence halls?
It's actually split about half and half. So we can house, again, the majority of our dorms, the res halls, actually all of the res halls are filled with first year students. And then within the ERC apartments and the 7th college apartments, we roughly can house like I would say then realistically, the dorms house about 3/4 of our first year population, and then like half to 3/4 of that population, and then the remainder would be in apartments. But we hopefully will house the majority of people who wish an apartment situation, and vice versa. So, but the majority of our students we accommodate in their first year in the dorms.
Great. So our next question is, if I drive, how can I get a parking permit and what does pricing look like for them? And I'm not sure who might be better equipped to handle that. I know, Alan, you talked about accessibility and some transportation stuff.
I'm not too sure on the parking or driving aspect of it. I don't personally drive, so I think Ray might be a better person to answer this question. Oh, I think you're muted, Ray, if you're.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuting myself. Just one basic rule is that the freshmen or first year students are actually not allowed to bring a car their first year, except in the case of an exception, if they file an exception and it's accepted. But a lot of the exceptions are really for people who have family commitments at home, or if they have work that is off campus. But even sometimes that's not even accepted. And so, as Alan had mentioned, there's a lot of really good public transportation options. And first year students should definitely take advantage of that, whether it's the trolley or the free shuttle that we have, all the free bus access is really worth that, as opposed to having a card simply because you want to have a car here for mobility's sake. I can tell you that having a parking pass at UCSD really is basically just permission to find a parking space at UCSD. You don't have a dedicated spot for yourself. Parking is, especially parking that is close to where you live, is few and far between. And so you may find yourself parking on, across the freeway. And it's not really worth it, because then you'll have to hop on the shuttle just to get back home. So for a lot of folks, having a car just for the convenience of having a car isn't really worth it. We also find that most folks who bring cars end up being the Uber driver for the rest of their building. And so you may want to consider whether you want to be that person or not. I think there was a reason why transportation basically said that first year students shouldn't be able to bring cars, because it really isn't needed for your first year. We really think that there's a lot of opportunities for you However, again, if there is there are extenuating circumstances that involve some of the things that I mentioned, you can put in for an exception, but it is up to Transportation Services to grant that or not.
All right, and additionally, I just posted a link in the chat to everyone, which is a link to the UCSD transportation page. It has more details about the different accessibility from buses to trolleys, as well as how to buy a parking permit and what that looks like, and what exceptions they make for undergrad students. So our next question is it normal for first years to be able to join Res Life, or are there clubs like that to become more involved? I think Alan might be able to answer that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we absolutely encourage first-year residents to come out and get involved with Res Life. A way I know a lot of students do that is through programming and planning with us. So we have an organization called PERC, or Planning at Planning Events at Eleanor Roosevelt College, and that one's really cool because you, in addition to other RAs, can plan events for other residents at ERC. So that I really recommend. Other ways you can get involved too is, let's say you're not living in a house, but you really are interested in iHouse. Something that we do is we allow students from ERC to get involved with the iHouse events. So you can join the language conversations table, maybe not as a host or as a person just learning a new language. You can also attend the global forums or Sunday supper. So there's a lot of fun stuff to get involved in, to plan events, to help volunteer as well. And I know other students get involved in student affairs and orientation as well. Correct me if I'm wrong with that aspect. Yeah, and then I also know student council at ERC is also something people get involved in as well. So tons of opportunities to get involved in planning and leadership for you all as well as a first year.
And Shrushi, would you like to touch a little bit on your experience, because you became an orientation leader sometime your freshman year, correct?
Yeah. So just to introduce myself a little bit, hi everyone, my name is Shrishti. I just finished my second year at UCSD being an ERC, and I actually lived in an apartment in my first year at ERC, and then I lived in an apartment in my second year in Seventh College. So I've kind of lived like both places, and I I guess lived in an apartment both my years. So I joined the orientation team my first year, and the applications for that are usually at the beginning of like winter quarter, so like late December, early January. And I personally just like, honestly speaking, kind of just joined because I wanted like a way to get more involved with ERC, but also just like a job that worked with my schedule, with the other commitments that I had. And I honestly feel like orientation has taught me so much. And it's a way to be a part of ERC and Res Life where you're not necessarily like as responsible as the RAs, but you still get to like work with the RAs. I actually have worked with Alan a little bit like last year and then a little bit more this year. And I just think it's a great way to kind of like have your foot in with like the planning and everything of ERC events. And you also get to work a lot of the events that Alan mentioned, like Taste of ERC. And you're also getting the opportunity to kind of, I guess, make an impact on the first years that are coming in. And I've done orientation. This is my second year now, and I just have really loved being involved in that way. One thing I will say, you can't be an orientation leader and an RA. And so, like, going into your second year, that is like one thing that you might want to consider. But other than that, those are two really big ways to get involved as early as like the like middle of your first year. And so after you kind of settled in your first quarter, those are two great opportunities to look into.
Great, thank you, Srishti. So our next question is, I have allergies specific to certain food items and ingredients. So where am I able to put those in, or I guess make those made aware to HDH?
So as I mentioned earlier in the contract information, there is, I believe, I'm blanking on the deadline, but I believe it is July 8th, where you have the deadline to put forward any kind of living accommodation requirements that you have, and one of those would be allergies, especially food allergies. And so as much as possible, if you can, connect with the Office for Students with Disabilities to have them work with you to make that accommodation known to housing. And then if you do have food allergies that can be accommodated, or depending on how the accommodation reads, it may be something along the lines of, that you need your own cooking space. We may place you in an apartment. And then in addition to that, residence life specialist at housing who works with OSD to make those accommodations would then work with you to meet with our campus dietitian to talk about your eating options if you do choose to go to the dining facilities to eat as opposed to cooking at home. So it's like a whole plan of action that they'll set up for you. But the important thing is to get all the information in by that deadline. So as much as possible, fill that information out in the contract information in addition to any documentation you want to send, but more importantly, making that connection with the Office for Students with Disabilities to also start that ball rolling to get that partnership going so that housing knows that that it's been vetted through OSD.
Thank you, Ray. So our next question is there secure bike storage available at the residence halls?
I can take this question. There is, I know outside some of them, we have bike racks, so you can lock your bike or your scooters on there. If you do want to leave your bike or scooters inside, they just cannot be in like public spaces, so they can't be in like stairwells or lounges, stuff like that. They would have to be in the suite or in your room. And that's usually another conversation we have, like when we do our living space agreements, is like, is bike storage, is scooter storage okay in like your room? So that's something we talk about with everyone. But yeah.
Thank you, Alan. So our next question is, where did it go? How different is the student experience having lived in an LLC compared to the general ERC apartments or residence halls?
So I've lived in Res Hall my first year, and then I lived in iHouse. I became an iHouse RA my second year and my third year. And I think both have their perks. Both were really fun. I think with the Res Hall, you do really get that really close-knit experience. You meet a lot of people super quickly. And it was really fun. Like Ray said, that we did do like dinner nights sometimes in the first floor kitchen. But with an LLC, I think our programming and our planning events is really tailored towards the LLC. So as an iHouse RA, we help out with Sunday supper, and that's like a quarterly formal or quarterly dinner we have with everyone. And people perform, do performances, and people eat good food. So I think with an LLC, the events are really tailored towards your identity or something that you want to explore, and aspects in that way. But again, like I said, if you are not accepted into an LLC, you absolutely can still get involved in the LLC events.
Thanks, Alan. So our next question is there a microwave or a refrigerator in the residence halls provided by UCSD?
No microwave or refrigerator provided in the rest halls. So if you do want to bring those would have to be provided by you. But there are refrigerators in the apartments, but no microwave in the apartments as well.
Okay, and our next question is, can you go a little bit over the safety and security of living on campus?
Yes, good question. So in a previous slide, I mentioned the RA on duty, and what we do is you have an RA sitting at the office from around 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that's if you need help with any housing maintenance lockout issues. From 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., you still have the RA on duty, but they're on a phone. So you have to call into the Reslife office if you need help with lockouts. And at those times from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., the RA on duty does their duty rounds. So they walk around the neighborhood, making sure everything is safe on that aspect as well. We also have partners that partner with us. We have the USO, the University Security Officer, and they also do their rounds around at 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. So they're also there to make sure everything in the community is safe, everything in the neighborhood is safe as well. And we also have UCPD, the UC Police Department, for any extreme emergencies. If you do need to get into contact with those resources, we have a contact, your RA provides a contact guide, and those numbers are accessible to you if you do need to contact anyone for security and safety.
Thanks, Alan. Shrishti, do you have anything to add about your experience?
I would say overall, I know coming into college, I was definitely like worried about like just being on like a college campus, like being away from home for the first time for me, and just like the idea of like not, I guess, living with my parents just overall. And I would say in my experience, UCSD is a super safe campus. I know I've like heard stories like not to like say anything about other campuses, but I've definitely heard stories about other campuses before that like have kind of scared me. I, especially my first year, have fully walked home from Geisel at 2 or 3 in the morning and like not even felt unsafe once. And so I will just say like I think especially like living on campus, UCSD is super safe overall. And that is definitely like something that I think helped me as a first year and like made me feel more at home just like knowing that I felt safe. And so I will say that, yeah.
Thank you, Shrishti. So our next question is, what are the evacuation procedures in case of a fire, earthquake, or emergency? And are these procedures posted anywhere in the residence halls?
I was just typing that answer. So we do have evacuation procedures for in case of fire, earthquake, etc., that are gone over by the RAs during their first building meetings. And then we also have those procedures posted in the suites and the apartments as well. We also annually have an emergency drill where we which the specific reason for the drill is it helps students understand what to listen for when an alarm is being set in the area, and then to familiarize everybody with the specific evacuation point for each building, so that everybody can gather. The RA and other emergency personnel can then at that point count noses, find out who's missing, and then we definitely have a neighborhood watch kind of mentality in our area, that your RA may during that time after a drill may say, hey, I noticed it looks like everybody's here from your suite, but who's missing? And then really having all of you be aware of who may or may not be present. So again, having everybody be again, creating that culture of care so everybody's aware of who should be in their suite, who shouldn't be in their suite. And then more importantly, in a situation where you're evacuated, that you can keep track of your roommates and your suite mates as best as possible. So we try and, again, provide that information in the very beginning. And then once you then hear an alarm, you'll know what to do after that fact. Alan, I don't know if you want to cover some of that. Alan, do you want to talk a little bit about cooking in the community kitchens and how sometimes that trips the alarms?
Yes. So basically, yeah, so cooking is great. People love cooking, but sometimes the what's it called? The fire alarms can't tell the difference between steam and smoke. So any kind of like cloud fixture will trigger it. And let's say you're cooking in a res hall and it is the first floor. If you do trigger that alarm, the whole building would have to evacuate. So just be cautious when you are cooking and just be mindful of what you're doing in those lounges, because yeah, those alarms will trigger.
All right, thank you. And then our next question is, what are the rules around house guests spending the night at the apartments or residence halls?
Yes, good question on that as well. So, overnight guests are permitted. However, they do have to be approved by your entire apartment, and they cannot sleep in the common area. So they would have to be in your specific bedroom. They also cannot stay longer than 3 nights, I presume 3 nights. Yeah. And also, but with these preferences on guest policy and overnight guests, again, we do go over those during your living space agreements. So your expectations around them, other people and how they are receptive to them, and those we do talk about during your living space agreements.
Great, thank you, Alan. And so it looks like we have a bunch of questions just about the likelihood of getting a specific type of room, like getting a double or getting a single. So maybe Ray, you could talk a little bit just about what the chances or the likelihood of that is. And I'm laughing because I know you can answer this many times.
Sure. So again, as I shared with you, the likelihood of getting your preference depends on what area you prefer. So the priority is your building type preference in your contract to begin with. So the housing looks at everybody who is interested in a dorm or residence hall, and then everybody who's interested in an apartment. And then after that, your room preference is what is the next important thing. And so if you really want to live in the dorms and you've indicated that, and you've indicated you want a single, the dorms have the fewest number of singles. And so they'll go through and try and meet everybody's request for that until we run out of singles to offer. And then we go to doubles, whether you ask for doubles or not, and then try and accommodate people that way. And then the last option are triples. We try and accommodate everybody who asks for a triple, but also that is the default for anybody who asks for a res hall who don't get their preference for a single or a double met. So then we accommodate everybody in the residence halls. Then in the apartments, whether it is at ERC or at 7th College, again, it's based on preference. So the larger, sort of the larger option in the apartments at ERC are single rooms. So again, if you preference a single bedroom and you indicate apartments, we'll fill all of the single rooms available to people who wanted singles. Mini doubles and doubles would be next. And so the preference would go from ERC to 7th College because we figure folks would rather live in ERC than 7th College. And so that double option would then be either assigned if people ask for a double or a mini double, or a default if they've asked for a single and we've run out of singles. And then we go to triples, which are only options at where the only apartment option would be at 7th College. So that's sort of the flow of how we make assignments, but it is primarily based on where you preference either the dorms or the apartments. And then it goes down from there based on the availability of each of those bedroom types in each area. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Ray. So our next question is, will the session later today from 4 to 5:30 p.m. cover the same content as this webinar? And I'm actually not sure because I'm not hosting that one. So Ray, if you could answer that.
Sure. Aside from City, we'll all be here with some of the other people that you may have not seen. And it will be the same information that's covered. You're more than welcome to join it if you have questions that you didn't ask now or think of after this. But it will be all the same information. So if you've done screenshots or copied us a lot of the websites that we've placed in the chat, you really should find all your questions answered that way and so you don't really have to come back for this afternoon because it will be the same slideshow. All the same smiling faces will be here as well answering your questions.
All right, I see a question about whether doubles and triple dorm rooms are equally available. I believe the answer is no. I believe there's a lot less doubles than there are triples, but I can let Ray answer more definitively.
No, that's exactly right. So again, in the dorms, the fewest rooms we have are single rooms. And then from there, the next step up would be doubles, and then the majority of them are triples. In the ERC apartments, the majority of rooms are single bedrooms, and then the only double option are mini doubles. And so a mini double is a converted single room to house 2 people. And so that's why it's mini, but it's also less expensive than a regular double. The regular double rooms can only be found at our seventh college community. Those are less expensive than a single, but more expensive than a mini double. So again, if you look at some of the price options that I put in the link, that'll give you the options for both residence halls and apartments. And the costs for singles, doubles, and triples would be the same, whether you're at ERC or at Seventh College. The only price difference is the mini double, because that's only at ERC.
Thank you, Ray. And I have a question for Srishti and Alan, which is any general advice for being a good roommate?
I can go first. So I actually had a single room my first year, but this past year I had a roommate, and I would just say overall, like make sure that you're communicating with your roommate about your preferences and then also like their preferences for things. I know one thing that I had in particular was I like to call my mom in the morning before I go to class, and so every day I would just like let my roommate know if I was calling my mom. And then she like because she preferred like not to be there, she would just make sure to like go outside for like a couple minutes while I called her. But that was like one of the main things I always made sure to like communicate with her. And then because I think I communicated it pretty well, she never like we never had like a like argument or like any sort of like disagreement about that or anything. And just make sure that you're communicating with your roommate, like if you needed to like use the room for like a meeting or an interview or just like for an extended period of time. Also like letting them know that like preferably ahead of time, and then even if like it's not as much ahead of time, like letting them know like as soon as you possibly can basically. And I would say like that's one of the biggest things like I think worked for me, and I think it worked pretty well because I'm living with that person again this year, and I lived with her my first year as well. So
Yeah, just the answer was great. Just to communicate with your roommate about any expectations you have with regards housing. And again, like your RA would help facilitate the living space agreement with the entire apartment. So and if anything does come up, or if something comes up that you didn't mention in the living space agreement, you absolutely just like make sure to communicate that with your roommate, because that happens, right? Another thing is you get a copy of your living space agreement. So your RA will type out the like a document, and you do get a copy of that afterwards. So you can see like the expectations of the living space. And that also can be flexible. That also can change throughout the year. So just be flexible, allow for communication, and that's my tips.
Thank you both. So I think since we're approaching time, that is a great note to end this webinar on. Julian, if you could flip to the next slide. So we just want to thank you all for being here and for listening to our information and for having us answer your questions. We hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, you can always call the number on the screen or email ercreslife@ucsd.edu. That QR code takes you to a list of resources and more FAQs, and you can always visit the ERC website for any other questions or information you might be looking for. But thank you so much for coming. Bray, Julian, Alan, thank you all for being here. Srishti, do you have anything to add? Alrighty, bye everyone.